we had someone in our WeChat group. Shouts to Clayton West from South Africa.
Shout out to you, sir.
Shout out to you. And he brought in a topic.
South African
he wanted
Republic.
us to give our ideas about. And he wanted the conversation was about religious-based discrimination.
Religious-based discrimination.
We're talking about the flag, talking about the Confederate flag and the roots of racism. But he wanted us to have the conversation about whether or not there's roots of racism in religion.
Roots
and
of
so
racism in religion.
I started thinking about, well, his question was, what role do you feel organized religion plays in government discrimination and politics?
Organized religion play in government discrimination and politics.
That's what I said.
Whoa.
So I was starting to look into the curse of Ham, right? So Ham, if anybody...
Hey, big shout out to the Judeo-Christian families, you know what I'm saying?
Anybody who might have studied the Old Testament.
The Abrahamic families.
The Abrahamic families.
There was
a cat named Noah.
What?
There was a dude named Noah.
What happened?
He built a boat.
I can't stand the rains against my window. Go ahead, Noah.
I can't
Noah and
stand
all the little
the
animals. Look at all the cute little animals.
Noah was with
Pass
all
it
the
back.
animals. And anyway, he had 3 sons.
Mm-hmm.
One of his sons' name was Ham. And
Hard as a muff.
No,
Right.
sorry, everything turns into a song. And so Ham saw, according to the story,
Preach, brother.
according to the biblical story,
Let's go.
Ham saw his father. His father had been drunk.
Well.
He was drunk.
Mm-hmm.
He was passed out in his drunken slumber.
Mm-hmm.
He was naked,
Mm-hmm.
and Ham saw him naked.
Mm-hmm.
And so Ham was like, yo, Ham went and told his 2 other brothers, like, yo, Pop's in there drunk and naked.
No clothes.
And so at the time, I guess it was offensive to see someone naked,
Sloppy.
sloppy naked.
Flapping in the
So
wind.
in order to finish the story, so his brothers, they got a blanket and they put it on their backs and they walked backwards over to their father and like shot off the blanket so the father would be covered so they wouldn't
This
see
is a
it.
super duper Old Testament story.
Crazy, right?
Yeah, right?
And so when Noah woke up, he was like, Ham, I know you saw me naked, and so I'm cursing you and the rest of your family, especially your son, Canaan. I'm cursing all of them. So according to
Gosh darn it.
the biblical tense, some people who want to use that,
Some people
have used that as a reason to believe that the descendants of Ham, or the Canaanites, which were supposedly of darker hue, which the Bible doesn't say anything about that. That's just something that people added.
Just like the Bible doesn't say anything about butt sex is the sex that God can't see. That's one of my favorite ones. I like that one. Yeah.
That's great.
It's not a sin.
I'm glad you threw that in there.
I'm glad I threw it in there too. Whoop.
So now people,
Hey.
certain groups have used that as a justification of the enslavement, because the curse goes on to say that your Canaan will serve his other 2 brothers, which were like Canaanites were supposed to be subsidiary to the Israelites.
Submissives. Not
Yeah.
the subsidiaries.
Submissive
Yeah,
to
yeah.
the. I'm sorry.
You got it.
Submissive to the Israelites, and it created this whole conversation about racism being inherent in the Judeo-Christian religion.
Bring it home.
I think that's bullshit. I mean, you go.
For those of you who did it, let me do the summary. Noah was like, I saw you in my sleep, seeing me nude. Your curse shall be darkness.
Right, darkness.
Darkness. Your skin and the skin of your sons and your sons' descendants and stuff like that shall be darker than all of ours, and that'll be your mark that you will then be the servants of the other sons.
So
that's what it was about.
To answer Clayton's question, I mean, a lot of people have used that as justification for slavery, for racism against black people, for excluding them from the clergy in certain communities.
Like what communities?
Like Mormon communities.
The what communities?
Or,
shout out to Utah, the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints.
So certain religious sects have used this idea
to say
that
because your skin is dark
people are inferior.
The Bible says Noah.
The Bible never said none of that.
The Bible never said it?
It never said that. And then also it's
just some head.
If you think about
it's just some head though. God can't
if you
see
think
head.
about the curse, right? The curse was from Noah. The curse wasn't from God. God never, signed off on that curse and said, like, this is real. This is like, yeah, like, I agree with you, Noah. Like, these people are cursed. So, like, the whole idea is like, all right, so a man in a story says these people are cursed, and so everybody going to roll with it, and God didn't even comment on it?
I'm going to tell you my biggest takeaway, appreciation for you getting into this.
Yeah.
Is just how bonkers the Torah is.
Right.
The Torah is so bonkers. And y'all, for those of you who don't know the Torah in the Old Testament,
It's the first 5 books of the Bible.
that thing is bonkers, bro.
Right.
All right.
And not to disrespect anybody's religious beliefs, like I come from a very, very devout Christian family, and I would never want to like intentionally disrespect what people believe, because people believe that. People believe in the words of this book, and this book is very powerful.
Oh, man.
And it is, it is solved as many problems as it has created.
Can we get into the question?
Let's get into the question.
So what role do you feel organized religion plays in government discrimination and politics based on the
People
yeah.
use it all the time to say gay rights, gay rights aren't valid because, the Bible says that marriage is between a man and a woman. And I'm like, fuck that. That's bullshit.
Yeah, you know what? Here's how I get down. I'm gonna take it here. I love the example that you gave with the curse of Ham, especially because I know people. I dated a Mormon gal when I lived in Hawaii. Actually, she wasn't Mormon. I'm bugging. I dated a gal who was from Fiji, okay, and her parents were from the south of India, and she was born in Fiji, and so she was a Dravidian, okay, dark-skinned sister, jet black hair. Yeah, I was doing good.
Yeah.
And she wasn't Mormon, but she went to Brigham Young University. And she was really tormented and flipped out and freaked out being a dark person and being there in this place where dark people are, cursed or whatever, right? And that they have to, do all of, they put you through all of this extra stuff for you to acknowledge that you have been cursed and all the rest of that.
For real?
Yeah. You have to go through extra rites and rituals or whatever.
For real?
Yeah. So check this out, y'all. Even having been close to people who have had that experience, for me, first people that I think about the first crime family, the Borgias. I just go straight back to what it is that we learned about corruption from the church. The church. For those of you who don't know, the Pope Alexander, who was a patriarch of the Borgia family, whose son Caesar Borgia ended up being the white image of Christ, so-called white image of Christ. Okay, right. Pope Alexander was a gangster, a hard-nosed gangster who became the Pope. Largely in part so that he could legalize divorce, so that he could have his own divorce happen, so that he could marry somebody else because he was greedy and he wanted to, consolidate some power. I just look back to the whole thing and I say that type of discrimination is great because for me, it brings me back to, it separates the racism thing, and it says that racism ends up being deployed by these other methods, right? Racism is the henchman of greed. Greed sends racism out to go do, X, Y, Z, right? Like race and racism, that's the hitman. But the hitman work for somebody.
Right.
So when I think about history and I think about the way that the Borgias.
I love that. That's powerful what you just said.
Right? It's from I got it from The Godfather.
Yeah.
I got it from that's my Godfather metaphor. For those of you who haven't seen 1972's The Godfather, Francis Ford Coppola, check that one out.
That is a famous movie I have seen.
It's in the bag. Yo, check this out, y'all. I just want to say it. That's something that for me, where I look at it and I just say, man, the way that the Borgias did it, you got to look at that history, y'all. Look into the way the Borgias took over the church, and the way that the church was already a corrupt organization, right? Because they was already doing certain things where people were stealing money and all the rest of that. But then you had this family that was coming up, this noble family, who was this like notorious like family of gangsters that they was just like, we can do it.
We can do this. You know what the most segregated?
We can hijack the church.
You know what the most segregated time is in the United States?
Right now.
No. Just time. It's time of day during the week. Time.
Probably noon.
Noon on what day?
Noon on Sunday.
Noon on Sunday. Why? Yeah, because you got the black church, you got the white church, and churches don't really intermix like that. And some of that is systemic, dating back to Jim Crow and or even dating back to before that, dating back to slavery when the slaves had their own religious ceremonies. They weren't allowed to mix with master and his ceremonies and everything. And so
Like the way
anyway,
they come down with that book.
comes down to the next question. How do you respond when someone's core values and beliefs affect someone else's quality of life? And I go back to the analogy of when someone says marriage is between a man and a woman, according to my religious beliefs, and because of my religious beliefs, I can't sign off on gay people or LGBTQIA plus communities being able to marry.
Well,
How do you feel about that?
for me, the question, how do I respond when someone else's
How do
core
you
values and
respond?
beliefs affect someone else's quality of life,
Yeah.
depends on the details of how it's affecting their quality of
In
life.
this example, for example.
In this example about the LGBT
Yeah.
stuff, I mean, if a person ain't listening, I say my voice. I'm that type of person. Like, if, a lot of times, look, y'all people who are tuning in to Pass the Bag, you've heard us once. You're tuning in because you want to know what it is that we have to say. But I really am the type of person where I'm, somebody ain't listening, or especially if somebody only wants me to listen to them, but they don't want to listen to me, I hit them with the thank you for sharing, which is better than telling them to go fuck themselves. You know what I'm saying? But I just hit them with the thank you for sharing. If I know that somebody don't value my voice, I save it. And then I just get away from them. That's how I get down. I'm like one of them type of people because I know about the art of war enough to know that, yeah, any fight that you can avoid, it's better for you to avoid. You only fight when it's the absolute last stance. If they're doing something that's affecting somebody else's quality of life, I'll say something about it, especially depending on what the violation is. I'll be like, yo, you shitting on, especially because you know how I feel about bullies.
Right.
I'm that type of person. If I see you doing somebody else wrong and you're doing it wrong in front of me, then you're attempting to sow an air of intimidation, and I don't play that shit.
Right.
If you slap the person next to me who can't defend themselves, I'm going to make sure I slap you twice as hard as what I perceived you to slap them. You know what I mean? Because I know that after that, you're going to hear me.
Right.
After I slap you, though, I'm going to let you know what it was about. So, yeah, I'm that type of person. I'll let them know, look, you on some bullshit. This is the bullshit that you on, and then after that, I keep my distance.
I was lucky enough to go to a university where they we had a training called the Diversity Institute. Shout out to Old Dominion University where I went to college.
Let's go,
Where I went
OD.
to university in Norfolk, Virginia.
ODU.
Great school and very international school. And we had a training called the Diversity Institute. And one of the pillars of the training was that in order for you to truly appreciate diversity, you have to believe that people have a right to believe whatever they want to believe.
Right on.
And if you can't approach the conversation from that point,
Let's go, Rachel.
then you're not going to have a real conversation. You're just going to be approaching it from your own.
That's right.
If you can't approach it from the perspective that people have a right to believe what they want to believe, then you'll never truly understand them. However, there was the next part of it. Until what they believe encroaches on what another human's quality of life.
Right on.
And I feel whether they listening or not, we gonna have to. I feel like it's my job as the one that knows better to scream it at the top of my lungs so they can hear it. They gonna hear it. And I think it's as important to note what's happening today in the world that's so important is that the people that know better have to speak up.
That's right.
Not just a people of a certain color.
That's right.
Or creed.
Check this
and
out.
when this is not trending news, the people that know better still need to continue to speak up about what's right and what's wrong. And it's wrong to encroach on other people's beliefs. Encroach on other peop's quality of life because I have a certain belief.
Let's go. Yeah, once I was in Thailand in a little town where there was a gal who I was sitting at a table, and there was a gal who was claiming that she was from Detroit. And I'm from Detroit, and so I could look at her, and I knew because I've seen people like her all the time who they travel. But if they were in the Detroit area, they would never say that they were from Detroit. They would have to be from Livonia or Northville or Farmington Hills or Warren or Taylor or one of these other surrounding communities. Right. But when they travel, they have to say that they're from Detroit.
Same way in D.C.
She's sitting up here talking about
people travel.
Yeah, I'm
like,
from Detroit.
DC.
Techno, yada
DC.
yada. Now, bitch, you stealing.
Right.
You stealing. Talking about techno and all this other stuff that don't have anything to do from you, with you when in reality. So I had to hit her with it. Where in Detroit are you from?
Right.
Well, I'm not actually. Yeah. Bitch, you stealing.
Right.
Back, relax, because whether you know it or not, that type of thievery it does encroach on the quality of life of individuals who actually, I don't know, grew up in those areas, has a real relationship to techno, has a real relationship to the culture that you want to travel around the world and then claim that you're so intricately connected to. I hope that you're listening, whoever you were, your name, who I've forgotten, lovely young lady.
And the article that we got was from Psychology Today, and the article concluded that the problem was that sometimes the Bible and the law fulfilled the very human need to justify our intolerances and our inaction.
You know what? I just thank you for saying that.
People use the Bible, people use the law to justify that they're intolerant and that they're lazy. They don't want to do anything about it.
I'm still turning up. I just want to give a shout out to all of them thieving ass neighborhoods that surround the city of Detroit. That's right.
Up right now.
Yeah,
You're saying it in the most offensive way possible.
For sure. Livonia.
Say it with your chest.
And Farmington Hills.
Say it with your chest.
And you know, those of y'all at Bloomfield Hills.
Say it with your chesticles.
And Grosse Pointe and
Let's
all the rest of that. When you travel around the world, talking about you from Detroit, but when you're in the Detroit area, you're thumbing your nose at Detroit, right?
Right.
Or when you got, when y'all moving into a house that somebody was forced out of using racist economic policies, right? Like redlining coming out of the banks. You know what I'm saying? And all the rest of this. But then you go into the house and you say, oh, what a nice house. I can't believe someone left this house here. Shout out to you.
They got kicked out of that.
Shout out to you. Shout out to you. Yeah.
Yeah.
Livonia.
Say it with your chest.
Yeah. Straight up.
Pass the bag. Let's get into the next bag.